Robin Prevey. I'm one of the dietitians at Green Mountain at Fox Run. Green Mountain is an all-women's health and fitness resort in Ludlow, Vermont. And one of the tools that we teach our clients at Green Mountain is to use a plate model when putting together a major meal like lunch or dinner. And this example here on the board is the plate model that we use at Green Mountain. Essentially what we try to do is split the plate up into 3 different sections, and we typically will have some sort of fruit or possibly a dessert on the side. And the way that we split up our plate is that a quarter of the plate would have some sort of grain or a starchy vegetable. Those are good sources of carbohydrate, and some vegetables have more carb than others. And so starchy vegetables would be things like potato, winter squash, green peas, parsnips are quite good for carbohydrate, corn. And so some of those vegetables we would actually treat like a grain. So those are filling up a quarter of our plate, and then the other quarter would be for foods that are a good source of protein, things like meat, fish, poultry. We will also use legumes, dried beans, lentils, split peas as a protein source. They are a good source of carbohydrate, but we tend to put them in this quarter of our plate. Dairy could be a source of protein as well. Milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, hard cheese, all good sources of protein. Nuts and seeds may contribute some protein as well. So it might not necessarily be only one food, it could be a combination of these different things, but essentially filling up a quarter of the plate. And then in the latter half of the plate, we have non-starchy vegetables. So essentially any vegetable that I didn't mention earlier. Lettuce, tomato, cucumbers, even things like carrots or beets that are a little sugary, we would consider those non-starchy vegetables. They don't contribute as much carbohydrate as something like potato or corn or peas. So using that kind of plate model, what it helps us do is address the different components of satiety. And when we're talking about satiety, we're talking about getting a comfortable feeling of satisfaction and fullness, if you will, from a meal, but also lasting feeling of satisfaction. So sometimes you could feel full, but a meal doesn't stick with us very long. So to achieve satiety, we have 3 things that we're trying to work into a meal. 1, enough energy, or having enough food. And so that's one benefit of a plate model, that you can consistently keep the quantity of food that you're having in a similar ballpark. The other thing that we would like to see is foods that are going to provide some sort of physical stretch to the stomach. And that tends to be foods that are high in fiber or fluid. And that's definitely one of the benefits of filling half the plate with those non-starchy vegetables. While they're not a great source of carbohydrate or protein or fat, they are very high in fiber and fluid. And so half that plate veggie usually takes care of getting enough volume or bulk. Carbohydrate, protein, and fat showing up at the same time tends to affect hormones which regulate our appetite. And ideally, if you have all 3 at the same time, we tend to get the best increase in hormones, which suppress the appetite, and it also kind of turns off production of one of the hormones that tends to rev up the appetite. So in a nutshell, we want all 3 of those at the same time. Luckily, with a plate model, that works out. If I'm having a grain or starchy vegetable, in this case rice, that's going to be a great source of carbohydrate. This chicken would provide protein, but also fat. These non-starchy vegetables, again, no carb, protein, or fat, but at least, again, it's going to provide that fiber or fluid. So very often when you use a plate model, it will keep our portions in a similar range, provide the volume or bulk that we need, but also be a well-balanced meal containing carbohydrate, protein, and fat, and help us to feel satisfied.